Mm. Hello, my loves. I'm so grateful to be here. And you know what? I'm a little behind. I'm getting myself set up over here on Instagram. And I'm so grateful. YouTube. And just going to be setting up our particulars for Instagram. It's so fun having two platforms to work from. Pardon me one moment. You know, it really, really is a gift. And I can't disturb the baby. You see, there's the cat. Can you see it? The bit of the cat is here. A bit of the cat is here. And so I want to be mindful of how I organize myself in light of honoring the cat. Isn't it funny how I don't know if you're a cat person, but there's this thing where it's like you do what you can do so as to not disturb the cat. So it's like that. It's all about the cat. All right. So let's go ahead and we're gonna do this now. If I can remember how. It's so funny. Every single time I feel like it's a renewal of remembering. How do I work with these goodies? Oh, here it is, live. Live. So blessings. Oh, yes. Blessings and welcome, everyone. It is such a gift. It is such an honor. I'm so very grateful to be here with you today. And I pray that there's enough light. I know on Instagram it looks a little dark. Pardon me one moment. Let me just get a little more light on the subject. And I think last week's came out a little dark. So I just want to go ahead and give us the light that would serve as that medium for all respects. Oh, blessings. Thank you, everyone, for hopping on already. I was just fixing the lighting. And at Instagram, and soon I'll be facilitating this on Facebook. This show is called 4D Trinity, and it is all about assuming the graces that are inherent in us just being a being on this planet, in us being, whether you believe that you are reincarnated of many times over, or that all of life is a continuation throughout the dimensions. We are here now, and in this exploration of being who we are and what we are here now, I know that my path is all about holding space for the fourth dimension. There's a lot of talk about 5D, and there are other teachers that you would go to for that, or other speakers or people sharing on that you might visit to gain insight for that. And I typically keep my ears closed to that to a degree. There's only so much you cannot see, right? The information coming in perhaps on posts on social media and such, yet the focus of my domain and the space that I hold is that space for us coming into a true clarity of our heart center, a true clarity of who we are and what we intend to embody as we become spiritualized, as we become awakened. Our elders, our children, our friends, our family, people that maybe at once would have made fun of you being into spirituality or meditation are now saying like, okay, how do you do that thing? Do you know of any classes? Can you recommend a space of love? It is love without an opposite. We are learning as we become spiritualized, as we become awakened, we're learning to see beyond the dual plane of reality as we've been taught to see things. All of life is stories. All of life is stories. The good, the bad, what we've been taught to call the good and the bad. It's all stories. And what we're doing as we awaken and come into our light body activation is we're becoming aware of what stories are in service to us and those which are really creating a sense of gravity, a sense of holding us back. And often those stories are those that are rooted in pain, that are rooted in something that we have experienced in our life that has marked us, that has marked our path in this life. And I've been meditating since I was 16. That was 31 years ago. And no matter how long really you've been meditating, because this earth life, again, perhaps is just one fractal aspect of the infinite self. Begin to see parts of yourself and parts of the world in a very different way. And at once there will be a destruction of those things that you thought you knew about yourself, about the world. And that can be very, very scary because you're not who you thought you were. And on one hand, there's like this, oh, thank God, there's this relief about that as we come into an awareness of realizing that we actually don't have to be that victim anymore. We actually don't have to keep singing that sad song. We don't have to keep rerunning those old memories. Yet at the same time, as we venture from the past, because today's theme, we're talking all about forgiving their past, the past of someone else, right? Holding on to, we get to really identify who it is we want to be in this now moment, and who and how and what pathways we're setting up for ourselves through the grids, through the grid matrix of collective consciousness of who we would be as we move forward in our lifetime. Because those things that mark us from our past, if we don't heal them, if we don't even look at them and work with them to some degree, whether you go to art therapy, whether you go to AA, whether you're, just in a silent prayer or in your meditation, just learning how to send love or be present with those aspects that stuff will drag you down, and it will keep you, I'm going to assume there's a fashion. I never want to project on the audience. Yet from my own self, I'm going to assume if you've had painful past experiences as well, that if you don't clear aspects of them up, even just start on the fractal level to start to allow yourself to make peace, to forgive, to collapse those timelines, that what happens is that all of those memories where we've been hurt, where we've been traumatized, where we've been the victim, and not to say that those become lenses through which we then see and feel multidimensionally our way around on this 3D level of being. And this third dimension is the world. It is the world that we have been taught to see, to know, to touch. It is all the stories of history, everything that we've ever imagined and thought of and have been told by our elders, by our family, by our society. And it's ongoing, it's constant, right? You go and you scroll, whether you're a Facebook or an Instagram or whatever your gig is, that's influencing that information, those pictures, that information you are seeing and receiving is influencing. Besides that, though, to the degree that we have not healed our past, we cannot be in the now. In the now. And the now is where your peace is. The now is where you are whole. The now is where you are unfuckable with, because you are holding in the space of this body that you are, that is multidimensional, that expands and extends beyond this physical form. You are holding space for yourself in a different way. When you have forgiven the past, when you have released those parts of your past, when you have allowed the metaphysics of the quantum organizer of love, when you've invited that quantum organizer in and given it the right of way in your life and asked for help. Right? We're not supposed to do this stuff on our own. I've worked with PTSD, people who fought in wars, but that they have that trigger, that marking on their timeline in their memory, of the past that they can't get over. And it's a trigger that every time they hear that sound, or they think they even see that thing, it sends that chemical rush and that response and that reaction, and it informs them about their environment, but it's happening from the inside out. And so what we're learning to do with all of this quantum medicine that's happening through Chopra and Dispenza and Bruce Lipton and Greg Braden, and all the underground physicists and scientists who equate science and spirituality as well, that don't necessarily have such big names. But what's happening is that physics and science and spirituality are beginning to merge, and we're almost beginning to speak with the same tongue, whereas we're understanding that everything is energy. And what happens with those PTSD clients is that when we go into the meditation and then we go and we meet, where we guide the situation to where they are face to face with that person, that place, that thing that has marked them, that has scarred them. And to the degree that they are able to forgive themselves or others, themselves or that event, that situation, to the degree that they are able to zero it out and come from the place of love and place love there, that quantum organizer that will help to redefine and reconfigure energetically on that subatomic, substratic level. That is where the work is done. And then what we do is depending on the situation, is then we would reimagine a new outcome. And that's the thing, what keeps the trigger for us, are where we have not gone back in and imagined a different outcome, placed a different memory for us there. And this is a part of us being a quantum being, coming into our enlightened sense. If you really go back in the scriptures and study, which is exciting, which is what I'm doing with all my projects with the grid and grid mind science, is that science and spirituality, the yogis have been talking in this certain tongue about energy and the energetics and the interconnection of all things, that science is not only now, but that over this time since we have had science, right, that however you look at a thing is going to affect how it looks back at you. So if you can change the way that you look, that you remember the past of others, that is going to, for the highest good, inform you of how your body can reset and relax and be present in the now. And it is such a massive thing. It is so massive because the past is not real. The past is illusion. The past, even 2 seconds ago, 5 minutes ago, is the past, and it's not the now. So before we go on, I want to say thank you, everyone, for hopping on YouTube and at Instagram. And okay, blessings. Unable to connect to chat. Please try again later. Okay, I don't know what's going on over here in YouTube land, but thank you. It seems like you were able to send a comment, April, so good to see you in YouTube land. So everyone, again, I'm Tuesday May Thomas, and this is my weekly live stream. Out of the month, we talk about metaphysics and spirituality. We do guided meditations. We go in deep and make those connections and break down our understanding of ourselves on a multidimensional level, and how to understand the metaphysics of the universe, so that we can be and embody that light being, our true nature, so that we can learn to heal our lives. And it's not just a once-off. You don't just go, as you know, to one weekend workshop and you heal your life and then you're like, I have no more work to do. Thank goodness for those workshops, though, and those aha and those corners that we turn, because, there's times in our lives where we're like, I can need a break. Yes, I can need a break from all of this, because we know, it's one thing to have that past traumatic experience happen, and it's another thing to then go back in. When you work with clients that have had a traumatic experience from when you were a child, if you're in your 40s now and something happened to you when you were 4, you've been carrying that with you for over 30 years, and it has informed the chemical response in your body. It has informed the way that you perceive your environment, and the way you perceive your environment is going to inform your environment of how it's to respond back to you. So it's this feedback loop. Yet we're looping the same fears, the same victim mentality, the same pain, the same trauma. And that's a part of what we do here. That's a part of what we do here in the world. Yet as we enlighten, we realize, like, how do I get out of this now? I've carried this pain with me for 15, 20, 50 years. And perhaps for you, it's time now to begin to considering different ways to do things, to look at things. Perhaps it's time to really go back in there, which we're going to do in our meditation, and confront. And really, confront is a very confrontational word. So maybe to invite those parts of ourselves, those memories, those people, those events from our past where we have found that bondage, and create the space of limitation so that we can, that those parts of bondage that create the space of limitation so that we can become unbound by the gravity of the grids, by the gravity of the memory, by the gravity of the past that we are walking within the now, that is that heavy baggage that is weighing us down. And so it is, and so it is. You know, today is a massive portal. It is the 12/12/19, right? Today's a full moon. And thank you, Billy Carson at Forbidden Knowledge, which I don't know if you follow. But he posted something that I reposted on my Instagram. This is beautiful image of the moon and a beautiful song accompanied by music that he created himself. And it just reminds us that today, right now, this next period that we're in, this is the final full moon of this decade of 2019. Like, I remembered that it was a full moon, but then that just shifted a certain perspective for me. And perhaps it does for you. And in alignment with today's show, using this full moon, using this powerful doorway to consider what you are willing, if you're going to stick around for the meditation and even the work that you'll continue to do on your own after this show here, what are you willing to really make peace with now so that you move into this next decade, the 2020 decade, in your moon cycles, to the ability that you can, sovereign, free, clear, at one and at peace. And this is all just about peace. You know, as we enter enlightenment, what is there? Nothing. Nothing but love is what I mean. Do you know what I mean? Like there's mind, but there's no real mind. It's in my, and believe me, I don't hold the, we all hold a piece of the puzzle. What I'm sharing here is just my offering. But that there's this aspect that it's really just love that's in there. It's really just when we go past all the mind stuff, and once we've healed and collapsed enough timelines of the past, it's like all these weeds that now we can see the present. We can see who we are in our identity in the now without all that stuff. And that's what I'm inviting, just this aspect, this frequential perspective of like, wow, everyone and every version of you that you've been up until this point of your life, using this gateway 12, 12, 19, 12 and 12, that's the 3 and the 3. And I always think, when I think about the threes, I always think about our metaphysical and our multidimensional makeup, that being, and whenever I teach about multidimensionality, I don't go into many, massive layers. We keep it simple. Physical body, the dimension of the physical body, the dimension of the mental body, the dimension of the emotional body. And then there's spirit. And that's why this show is 4D Trinity. Because what we're doing is we're learning to bridge the elements, the frequencies of the body, of the mind and the emotions to match that blueprint of spirit, that blueprint of your light body, of your higher self that you already are. And so really what the invitation is to move into this place of understanding that we have been collapsing timelines of the past through our healing, through our ability to even learn and to even consider forgiving. And what we will be free to do then in that now moment, in this now moment, is then to be free and available to begin to collapse timelines in the name of love versus in the name of like, I got to heal my stuff. I got so much stuff. And believe me, my whole book, right? The Reiki Apprentice takes you through, for the most part, all the parts of my healing. Now there's 4 books that come after this. I used to call it a trinity because I have other books, and then there were more and more and more books. And I'm like, okay, it's a quadrinity perhaps. But it helps to outline. And number 1, if you follow me and you're interested in the grid matrix, this book encapsulates how I informed about that information, and also through learning the metaphysical application of the grid in tandem with Reiki and with my understanding of multidimensionality that I gained with my teacher, I learned how to heal my life. And so if that's of interest to you, check it out. It's on Amazon, on Kindle and paperback. And you can even just read a bit and see if it's your vibe. But the point is that everything that I share here is in service to us coming back to remembering our truth, coming to our true identity. And if I may, express that in my experience, that is that we are love. And when we remember that we are love, love bridges us to the fourth dimension. And the 4D consciousness is my gift. It's a gift to me, but it's holding space for that frequency that is a gift to me, that I get to share and extend my findings and the realizations. And I'm going to assume you've had some too. You wouldn't be here. Some realizations and revelations in the heart space that are unbounded by the gravity of this place. And perhaps it's been in ceremony. Perhaps you've done the mushrooms, the ayahuasca, the, psilocybin explorations. And when done with sincerity and with great reverence and respect, these medicines, these journeys, which you don't even really need. You can go in with the drum, you can go in with the breath, pranayama, breathing exercises, and just really your sincere, present surrender and availability to saying to the universe, I'm ready, show me more. Show me more of who I am, because I'm done being this version of myself. So I'm going to give you some examples. There's a woman that I know, an elder, who is in her 90s now. And she shares stories of me she shares stories with me. And one of them, just this idea of forgiving the past and others, right? One of them, that when she was 5, now she's in her 90s now, when she was 5, a young girl made fun of her smile and told her that she had buck teeth. Ever since then, and now I've known this woman my whole life, and it's a thing that we would say to each other in the circle and say, she never smiles in a picture, like over all the years seeing pictures of this woman, and that she never smiled. And come to find out just recently, her story garden told her that she had buck teeth and laughed at her when she was smiling in her beautiful presence and power, and that she allowed that girl's perspective of her to shut her down. And for 90, almost however many years, she has not smiled in a picture. And she even finds it hard to smile in public, in private, in person, because that memory is still there. And that's what I'm talking about. It's these little things. It can be massive things where you really, there could be layers, complex layers of healing that this gateway will open. But there's also those tiny things that are these little linchpins and how they've affected us. This woman did not smile to her full potential for her whole life. I don't know how long she's going to live. But for the majority, over 80 years, perhaps 90 years of her life, she's withheld her ability to smile, to embody that beautiful love to that degree, if you will. Not that she hasn't loved or received in other ways, but that's just an idea. Equally, this same woman, I'm going to put all this in a bubble of light. Equally, this same woman, and I'm purposely not saying her name to serve in her privacy. She had a son who was a little bit mentally ill, and who over the course of his life had threatened to kill her several times over. This is the same woman, right, who withheld the smile. And she would tell me these stories where she would be so scared that she would sleep with her tennis shoes on. She would hide her bag and know where her car keys were in case she had to run. And this was this ongoing thing that she had. The son would threaten to burn the house down, and just all sorts of, physical verbiage, abuse, threats, and all this stuff. And she was on her own, and so she would live as this victim, and she would live in this constant state of not knowing what was going to happen. Yet what she told me about that, which was interesting in juxtaposition to the story that she would tell me about the girl laughing at her smile, is that because he was her son, she was able to collapse that timeline. And those are my words. Any time that he would react or be that imbalanced version of himself, she would pray, is what she would tell me. And she would ask God to help her just forgive him. Like she knew in her heart that that was not the true version of him, because he would show up at times and be this loving, kind son to her. But she knew that at those times where he was threatening, where he was violent and all those things, she knew with her third eye vision of her heart and her third eye activated. And because the grace of that was her son, and for her peace of mind, what else could she do unless she was going to really go crazy herself and become a bitter old woman? She collapsed those timelines instantly and forgave him. And where she had a hard time doing that, she would ask God, help me find the grace to see this differently. Help me forgive this situation, so that she could reset her own ability to see him and then perceive and interact in that relationship. And the irony is that now she's in her 90s and he has actually passed away. And so he's not even here anymore. However you want to take that. But it's that juxtaposition where she was able to forgive her son instantly, or go there to create that peace. Because she knew that in the 3D, this was going to be an ongoing dance that she'd have with this person that is her son. Yet for some reason, she could not extend that same grace to the girl who made fun of her with the buck teeth. And so she carried that. And like that, we decide, don't we, who we're going to forgive, what situations are applicable, and which ones we're going to hold on to. So just taking a moment now, which ones are you holding on to? You're here for a reason. You're listening for a reason. And I pray this serves you. And if it doesn't come right away, that's okay. But we're going to use these things in our meditation. So checking the time. So what situations are you still walking with? So specifically to our title here this morning, forgiving the past, remember anymore. So equally, right? There could be situations. There's another situation in a family dynamic where the parent has, according to the child, been traumatized. Where the child has been traumatized by the parent, right? Mentally, psychically disturbed. The child has become disturbed by her experiences of her childhood. What's happened is the child and the parent have moved apart from each other over their life. And over the period of 15, 20 years, now what's happened is equally, and in their own way, they don't have a close relationship. They don't talk, they don't share, but equally in their own way, they've been doing their work, right? They've each in their own way taken to a spiritual path. And of course, this is going to come up what is enlightenment? You're going to be lighter. You're not going to be carrying grief and grievances and hate and revenge. You're just not, and to the degree, and believe me, it's work. There's cycles, and those elements, if you carry them with you, little by little, they will dissolve, but they're your teacher. And so are these people we interact with. But in this case, right, what's happening now is now the daughter's getting married. And now there's this issue where she wants to do the right thing and invite that parent, yet what's happening is that they haven't healed together. They haven't seen each other eye to eye. And the parent is in the place where they have decided that they've already gone past this now. And they can't even remember the aspects that the child is still holding on to, like those memories of being pointed at and laughed at and whatever the thing is. The child, who is now an adult, is still walking with that memory, with that trauma, with that, those issues with their parent. And meanwhile, the parent is like, boop, moved on and been like, I'm here, let's heal, but I've completely forgotten about what all that is. Can you imagine how frustrating that is? The God phone. Hello, dear God. Of course, it's always you on this phone line. God says hi. Yeah, yeah, I'm wearing the God is a verb shirt. Although I think on Instagram on my phone, I need to flip the screen around because I think it's backwards, but this is my God is a verb shirt. I know. God just wants us to remember that everything is being redefined, and that the definition or the space to play in that is offered here at 4D Trinity and the teachings I share is the expression that God is a verb, that God is a feeling realization. God, it can be whatever you want it to be, right, God? God says, yeah. It's whatever it is to you. Yet, what I'm guided to share through the grace of God that I receive is that it be redefined, and that it's okay that this word be redefined, because there's a lot of polarity, there's a lot of fear and pain and hate and trauma associated with it. And really, what you're saying, God, is that you're inviting us to get into the feeling. Yes, the feeling realization, and really that God is love and only love. God is beyond the dual plane. God is not in judgment. God does not hold fear, but God is that absolute. You know me, I use that word unfuckability and unfuckable with. God's laughing. God says, I prefer inviolate, right? Well, that's God. But to me, it's this when you're really down with love and you're really open to it, it's that God is the experience of that feeling realization of being in love's presence. Whether you're alone, meditating, making your soup, petting the cat, or just hanging out, or with others and in community, with your lover, with whatever it is. Okay. Yes, I'll read a little bit. Thank you, God. All right, namaste, blessings. All right, so that idea that with that story that that the parent has forgotten, and the child is saying, and maybe because it's been 15 or 20 years, and the child is now saying, like, okay, wait a minute, now I'm getting married, I'm moving on, I kind of want to do the right thing, or I do want to do the right thing, I want to invite my parents to be at the wedding, even though we have this unresolved stuff. And the child is needing to resolve the information, to resolve the pain in the heart, yet the parent is saying, what pain? I'm over it, let's move on. And the child is very, very frustrating. And now the child, I'm saying the child, but the youth is an adult now, and under him, because all of the unforgiveness that is withheld and all of the pain that is withheld in the child in this equation again filters out through all of her experiences and her relationships in the perceptual lenses of how she sees other women that have that matriarchal or that energy about them, and it informs her about how she reacts and responds to that in the world, which creates further potentials for that experience to happen over and over and over again, which is great when that projection is rooted in love and it allows everything to come into like the flower of life, sacred geometry, divine dance of seeming opposites. Yet when there's polarity and fear and pain and shit that you're like, we need, and you did me wrong and you need to suck it up and own this. And when the parents like, I'm over it. I have actually gone past this, and the child needs that. It can be extremely frustrating. Yet the invitation is here is then do the work. And I know that you feel. I know there's this aspect where you could say, but what about them? What about them? When there's this feeling of that, even though they might be saying that they're over it, whoever they are in that story, it's the parent and the child. But they might be like, I've moved on, and you're like, okay, well, I need closure now. But in order for me to have that closure, you have to accept and acknowledge what you've done to me, or else we can't have this 3D closure. And so what happens is that happens. And then we dance and we straggle along and we have this hurt and this pain, and things then do not get resolved. Yet, in my experience, and that I work with clients in this way, is that there is a way to do this. And we're going to do this in our meditations, because even though the third dimensional aspect of that parent is saying, like, with grace, they're not trying to be mean to the child, but in their own evolution, we know it's in the Akashic records, but in their grittery, they've released it because they've come to terms with it. They've admitted, they've acknowledged, they've done whatever they've done, but the child now needs that recognition. And so we go in and we do this in the meditation, because when we call in the aspect for the highest good of the higher self, of that person, that place, that thing, to do this work with us, that higher self knows. The higher self knows what's unresolved in those finer dimensions. And so the higher self will channel through that person, so that to the degree that those aspects are ready to meet and be healed for the highest good of your path and for the highest good of all in the now, in the 3D, in your body, in the world, they will be done so. Okay, so we're going to explore this. So just one more sample or example so that you really understand this in a way, and I pray that you do, is, so there's another story, and it's this interesting thing, and this is all in a bubble of light because I hold no judgment, but these are just stories that I have been granted. So it's a very interesting thing, and I don't know what it's like in the African community, and honestly, in my heritage on a side of my family is Mexican, and there's an aspect where, even though it's an unspoken one, there is still an aspect with the skin color. And even more so back in the day, where the Mexicans in Mexico that had money were light-skinned. And it was the thing to be a light-skinned Mexican. It meant that there was this, and these are my words, please, these are only my words of how I'm interpreting the stories that I've been told by my family from Mexico. But that there was this sort of regality that was associated with being a lighter skinned Mexican. And when you had a child and they were a darker skinned one, it was almost like this unsaid, very subtle, like, thing, like, okay, well, they'll work in the fields kind of grids. Okay. So cut to, there's a woman, again, she's very elder, right? 80s, 90-year-old. Now, when she was a youth, she commingled with she's a light-skinned Mexican. She commingled with a dark-skinned Mexican, had a child who was a dark-skinned little girl. Now, as the dark-skinned little girl was growing up, the mother would say to the little girl, would give her information, telling her that, you're no good. Look at your dirty, dark skin. You look like a Mexican, even though they were Mexican. It's like this weird psychological bullying thing. Those are my words. But that this information would be reflected back to this child, and the child's just a kid going like not even aware of their skin color, but they're being told, they're given this information anyway. So just even that, right, as a root. So this grows up, the child grows up, the parent grows up, and now, right now, and the child has this hidden, like underground, like angst of always feeling that they're not enough because of this information that their mother told them about their skin color. They can't do anything about it. I mean, we know there's medically, you can, whatever, there's creams, whatever, but they didn't go to that length, but they've just had to live with that on top of whatever other stories they've been told. And when I've looked at this from a different perspective, I see how the mother was hurt by the father because he left the scene, and perhaps was projecting what she had learned, obviously, from the culture about the skin color, but also her pain and her hurt about that guy leaving her with a child onto the child. And now the child gets to work with this. So what has happened is that now, 50, 60 years have gone by, and this child is like starting to read the self-help books and all this stuff. And she's like, I need to write that letter to my mother and tell her, because she was ready to get over the pain. She writes the letter to the mother gets it, has no idea. Like the other parent is, although the other parent acknowledged but has moved on, but this parent has absolutely, they're like, I didn't do that. I never said that. You're going to be crazy, which makes the child go like, okay, now you're really driving me crazy, because this is my experience, this is my memory, and I'm doing my best to create the conditions for these things to be forgiven, for them to be enlightened. Yet when the parent is saying, well, I have no idea what you're talking about. I was always a good mother. I provided for you. It's a different domain because these are elders that are 80, 90 years old. So that's almost 100 years ago. There's a different way that they had to live or do what they needed to do to make it all work. Yet still this lack of memory. And so what she's having to do is she's doing her work. She's having to do it on her side of the court, you see. And that's the point that I intend to get across, is that when they are unavailable or they have passed away from this life, because I know there are grievances. I work with clients that they are still looking to heal their hearts, but that person is on the other side. You can go in when that person doesn't remember how they've hurt you, and they're just like, I never did anything wrong. And that can be frustrating to you. It is your job, if you would have it, to do the work on your side of the court, to do the work from your side of your perspective of what fractals within you require healing. So I'm going to read just a little bit here from the God Phone wanted us to read a little bit on forgiveness, and then we're going to get into our meditation. So again, thank you everyone so much for hopping on. I truly pray that everything I share here just always serves your path of spiritual growth and sovereignty, your path of freedom, of liberation, so that you can be in peace. Because when we're in peace, that is when we tap that heaven on earth realization. That is when we tap the heart. That is when we come into alignment with fourth dimensional consciousness. My friends, what is 5D without heart? And perhaps you're already there and your heart is already open and you're actualized and you're realized and you're experiencing sacred secretion and Christos and all these amazing things. Yet if you're not, and if we're just putting, the affirmations and the stuff on top, which is good because it's the training to get our heads out of that, the thinking and the pain and the rerunning of those memories that keep us bound to being the victim in this world, to in 4D. Because 4D is about heaven and earth. It's not about the world, as you've been told. It's about heaven on earth. But you are the bridge, you are the conduit. And a big part of what our talk is about here today is forgiveness, right? Is the power, how that zeroes all that stuff out. And even if you can only begin to start forgiving, so it is. But that is your path home. That is your path to enlightenment, specific to this topic. Well, always. Because it frees. Last little story. My father died last year. I never met him, but I was aware of him. He was a heroin addict and a drug runner. He ran from the draft. I was born in 72. And my mother left him when I was very, very small. And so I never met him. I have a memory if there's some pictures only, right? Memory only in pictures. Now, for whatever his stories were, my mother never, ever, 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 ever said anything negative, bad, anything about this person. She just told me the truth when I was old enough. But she never overlaid that. I never had any polarity about it. So let's think about this. 12, 12, 19. The trinity of your mind, your body, your emotion, the one and the zero. We are at the gateway of going in to a new realm of who we are in this new decade. Where were you 10 years ago in 2010? What aspects were you healing on? Because it was 2010 when I returned from Spain to to California, and I began a conscious conversation with my father. And we never met in the physical, but we would send pictures, we would tell stories, and begin to just create this relationship. Well, he called me 2 weeks before he died last year, and he said, I'm asking for your forgiveness. He's like, you were a beautiful baby, but I was never there, and I was on drugs, and da da da. And I said, Papa Thomas, I appreciate that you're asking, but I've never held anything against you. I have never held anything against you. I have only love and appreciation for you. And I'm grateful we got to know each other at this point of your life. And then there was this deep pause. And because of my spiritual studies and A Course in Miracles, I said, I'm going to say this to you with a lot of grace and a lot of love, Papa, but maybe it's you that you need to forgive now in your last days. So it goes both ways. It's deep like that. Forgiveness is the key to happiness. Here's the answer to your search for peace. I'm reading just a little from A Course in Miracles. Here is the key to meaning in a world that seems to make no sense. Here is the way to safety in apparent dangers that appear to threaten you at every turn and bring uncertainty to all your hopes of ever finding quietness and peace. Here are all questions answered. Here, the end of all uncertainty ensured at last. Now, the thing about forgiveness is we have to be willing, we have to be determined at times, especially where we've been very deeply wounded and hurt, to see things in a different way, because that is your metaphysical power of perception to affect the substratic information of atoms on a subatomic level. If you continue to see what you've been trained to see, your pain, your fear, your trauma, or how bad you are, your regret, then that is going to just keep informing the structure, the energetic sea of quantum superposition of elements that we live in, to keep performing and repeating that as your experience. And so what we do is we allow ourselves to, again, come into that domain of seeing things differently, of allowing ourselves to step into a realm where things can be redefined. So let's go ahead and take a moment. We're going to enter the rose quartz crystalline cave to do this work together. So take a seat, get comfortable, maybe you recline or sit, and thank you again, everyone, for hanging out. This is going to be about a 10-minute meditation. So get comfortable. If you want to use your crystal, or if you just want to hang out and listen, right, and come back later, because I know if you're on IG Live, this will be on the story for an hour, but it's also being recorded live at YouTube. So that'll be on my 4D Trinity playlist there if you want to come back. So let's take a moment. Take that good deep breath, really with intention, breathe. And let yourself come into your full strata of awareness now. What has brought you here now? What work is there for you to do now? Who can you forgive today? And let's just focus on one person, on one thing. It could be an event from your past. But when you heal that one thing, it could be that one linchpin that's holding so many parts together that when released, so many parts of you are allowed to come undone as that version of you that is not the true you. So that the real, powerful, healed, whole, coherent version of you can rest and be present in peace. Take a moment to drop into the space of your heart. Imagine shrinking your body down, your whole being down, coming in through the top of your head like a little astronaut and landing in the space of your heart, the center of your chest. And then feel yourself beyond the energy center of that heart chakra, that you are literally in the muscle of your heart, and you can feel the pulsing, the pumping of your heart, this miniature sized version of you in your own body. You can see, you can feel the whoosh of the blood flowing by, being pumped around your body. Let that blood, let that plasma, let that energy circulate around you and energetically wash through you in this space of the heart. Feel this version of you in your heart, extending a line of connection from your crown, from the top of your head of this small version of you in your heart, up through the spine, from the heart, all the way through the top of your physical head where you sit or lay now, and connect with your higher self. Take a breath as this connection is made. Acknowledge your higher self as it acknowledges you.